a city pair defined, and we put this in the data set where you need to notify someone of the SSR code. So what's the process? Normally, if you have a flight departing from your aerodrome and you have to negotiate with an external FIR what that SSR code is as part of the clearance, then you can make the system do it automatically. You just define the flights with this departure, this destination. When they get pre-active, the system will send automatically a change message with an SSR code associated inside the message. So I don't know if there's any circumstances at the moment where you do verbal coordination or you have to send the SSR code. Here's a way that you can make the system do it automatically for you every time an aircraft pre-activates. It does flex track processing, which we really don't care about, because you guys aren't using that. Okay, so that's the things that it does when it pre-activates. If you were to change the estimated time of departure, because it's the key, what would happen with the aircraft? So if it had just pre-activated and we went, oh, that flight's going to be delayed, so I'm going to change it, so I'm going to delay its ETD by 1 hour. So it no longer is eligible for the flight plan, the departure pre-activation event. What should happen to the flight? Well, it will actually go back up into the inactive state again. So it will cancel all the things, it'll stop the finishing event. I think it strips out the SSR code, it doesn't care about the sector list, and well, it sent the message, so it can't unsend the message. It'll simply just sit there and it'll go back into the inactive state. This happens every time you change the ETD. So even if you only change it by 1 minute, the system will actually go back into inactive, and if it's immediately eligible to be pre-active, it'll go through all of the pre-activation events again another time. And then if you change the ETD by another minute, it'll go back through and it'll cycle through and it'll do all those things again. And then it'll just keep going as many times as you do it. So if you want to annoy someone by sending a lot of change messages, you can just sit there and keep changing the ETD and it'll just keep sending these messages every time you do something to the flight.
Sorry, can you speak slow?
Sure. If you want to, any time you change ETD, it's going to go through and check, is flight now eligible for pre-activation? So FDP is not very smart. It simply sees the times and it will try and do these events. So it doesn't care if a flight's already been pre-active. If you change the ETD, it goes all the way back to the top and it attempts to run through all of the processes again. Okay, so any questions? What's the next event?
How about delay?
A delay?
Delay.
So, when you receive a delay message, what happens to the flight?
When not receive delay, but
Yep.
the time is
Yeah, so if you manually change the time of departure, it will do exactly the same thing.
not change the time.
So, if a flight tells you that it's delayed and you don't do anything, nothing will happen. So let's say that the aircraft. So let's have an example. Let's say we have an ETD of 1000 and it's 09:30 in the morning and the pilot rings up and says, I've got a problem, I'm going to delay until 1600. Alright, so his departure is now delayed to 1600. And you do nothing. So the system will calculate the finishing event, because this is one of the triggers that we have. And so it sets the finishing event to be probably 1400, something like that. And then what happens when the flight doesn't move at 1400, the flight gets finished. Then at 1530, when the flight taxis and requesting clearance, and you try and pull the strip up, and it will be flight plan not found. If instead I had have changed the estimated time of departure to 1600, what it would have done back here is it would have recalculated the finishing event, which would actually be according to 1600 plus something. There are a few other triggers, but essentially it would then put the flight back into inactive and it would now wait, and then somewhere down here it would pre-activate the flight and go through all of the checks. So if it's a delay, remember that ICAO says a delay of more than 30 minutes, you need to send a change message. So if you did that, then essentially you will send a change message automatically in the system if you change the ETD by that amount.
I had some problem for some flight.
Yep.
When flight delay, but ATC or nothing.
Yeah.
Do nothing. And then it's about 30 minutes or I'm not sure how many minutes. We cannot coordinate flight. If nothing, we cannot do anything in that flight.
Was it an inbound or an outbound?
Outbound.
Yeah.
Departure.
Yeah. So it really, yes, it depends on the state. Maybe it might have been, well, it wouldn't have been pre-active, but yeah, there would be some other reason that stops it. So it's important to adjust the time, because for all of the coordination events specifically, if we look at the trajectory, so remember that I said trajectory calculation is one of the events that happens at pre-activation. So if we assume the departure is 1600 and here's our trajectory that gets built, and here's the FIR exit, it calculates, okay, this is the exit time, and then there's a certain window, plus or minus, around that coordination point. And if you try and do something in the system like coordinate a flight at the wrong time or without updating it, then the operator action might say, well, the estimate for that point is time 17. But according to the system, the time might actually be 49 over that point. And if there's a big enough difference, it starts to block the operator, because it'll say that's not the correct information. According to my trajectory estimate, I'm expecting the flight to be there at this time. And it has a small amount, it can be plus or minus some factor, but if it's a large amount, then that's where you start to get flight plan rejections in the system. So it's very important, if you know that ETD is changing, to update it first, because that drives many system processes. It's always important to do that, just like in SATCOMs.
In document, the flight plan will retain in the system for IFA flight 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we find 1 hour. Data set use this data to input in data set.
Yeah, it does. What we normally do is we say if we have a change of more than 30 minutes, we will send a change message automatically. So if you change the departure conditions of a flight by more than 30 minutes, it will send change, which is what ICAO require you to do. So it doesn't, you don't have to send a change, the FTP will do it for you.
บางไฟที่ไปเจอก็ลองทั้งไอฟ้าทั้งบีฟ้าก็คิดว่าตอนแรกว่าเป็นบีฟ้าเอาไปไอฟ้ามันก็มันไม่ใช่ทุกไฟมีที่ไหนเจอวะที่ว่าโคไม่ได้อะดีเลย์ไปแค่15 นาทีนี่ก็ไปโคไม่ได้แล้วบางเครื่องดีเลย์ไปชั่วโมงครึ่งก็ยังโคได้อยู่คือไม่ได้ดีเลย์นะแต่ว่าเวลาเลยมาแล้ว
ให้ไปเปลี่ยน
เปลี่ยนไม่ได้เปลี่ยนที่พูดไปทำอะไรกับไฟก็ไม่ได้เลยเปิดไฟแผ่นวิดีโอมาก็ไม่ใส่จะไปเปลี่ยนที่วิธีมีไฟแล้วรูปใหม่มันไม่ได้ว่าเราไม่ได้ทำอะไรเลยเวลาก็บอกแล้วจะทำร้านที่หวังมันไม่ได้จะมาอะไร
There's a number of different coordinate, and there's another timeout, and then there's a timeout for landing as well. So it depends which one you're referring to.
บอกว่าแก้ยังไงก็ได้แต่ว่าก็เป็นนี่คือสิ่งที่ไม่ทำได้ทุกวันมีสิ่งที่ทำได้
Sending delays or
เราไปทำก็ชุมขึ้นบางขึ้น
We'll find out exactly what the parameters are.
for delay, it's FPL into the delta.
นั่งมา30 วิหรือ30 มิลลิ
This is for sending delays.
Yeah.
ก็บอกแล้วเราบอกง่ายตอนนี้ทำให้ไปลบเลยให้เขาเปิดไปก็วิ่งไปก็ได้เพราะอันนี้ไม่ยืนแบบ5 ทีที่เปลี่ยน UPT ก็ไม่ได้ใช่เพราะมีคนเลยมันมี30 นาทีมันยังไม่เกิน
You talking about the time at the boundary point?
เคยลองมาเลกา
So before it deletes the flag. Okay, so that value here is FPL finished reactive, so 240 minutes. 240 minutes, so for 4 hours. So the flight is meant to leave at 08:00, stay in the system till 12:00, and then it would go delete.
4 ชั่วโมงคือพารามิเตอร์มันเป็น OR
ไลน์นึงนะ
ใช่
ที่ยังคงในดีเทลในระบบ
ใช่
นี่นะ
คือสมมุติว่าเครื่องมันเดฟ10:00ใช่ป่ะแล้วพารามิเตอร์ของเรามัน4 ชั่วโมงแต่อยู่ดีๆมันเปลี่ยนไปเป็น16อย่างเงี้ยมันเกินพารามิเตอร์ไฟล์ตัวนั้นน่ะมันไม่อยู่ในไฟล์ Data Record มันหายไปแล้วถูกมันทิ้งไปแบบออโต้
Just as long
If you
with that
coordinate
4
it,
hours.
it goes down to 1 hour if you
Yeah.
coordinate it. So once you coordinate it, there's another parameter.
So when we talk about the finishing event, okay, so pre-activation, it calculates the finishing event, but there's more than one trigger. Like Jamie said, if it's pre-active and then we do nothing, then it will be deleted in 240 minutes time. If we coordinate the flight and then do nothing, it will be deleted 60 minutes after that event. So both of these are finishing events. So every time the flight data record is touched, it will recalculate the finish. So when it goes from inactive to pre-active, it uses this parameter. When you coordinate it, it then uses that parameter to recalculate when the flight finishes. When it gets active and couples, it then resets the finishing event again to be leaving your FIR boundary plus a delta if the aircraft is uncoupled. And at that point, it will then finish the flight. So that's 3 different ways that it can be finished automatically.
คือว่าถ้าโทรขอเวลาแค่
ครึ่ง1 ชั่วโมงได้ยังไม่ทำอะไรเข้าใจอยู่แต่ว่า
ล้มเลิก
แต่ที่เคสคือสมมติ10:00ไม่ได้ทำอะไรเลยแล้วต้องคือมันเกิน10:00แล้วเรามาใส่ดีเลยไม่เกินใช่ไหมแต่ว่าสมมติเป็น10:15เรามาทำอะไรกับไฟนั้นไม่ได้มีเคสที่แหลมถามจริงคือ
อันนี้คือเป็น normal case ที่ผมเจอคือขึ้น 10 โมงตรง แต่ตอนนี้เวลาที่ 10 โมง 15มันเลยเวลา ETD ไปแล้วเราไม่มีการส่งข่าวดีเลย์ทุกอย่างแล้วโอเคเราจะไปใส่ข้อมูลมันใส่ไม่ได้จริงๆมันควรจะได้เพราะว่าอยู่ใน30 นาทีมันดีเลย์
ถามอะไร
ยาวเลย
Okay, so ETD,
ไม่สามารถคูณ
1000, yep.
Calm down.
at that time 10, 15 you cannot
Yeah.
coordinate
There'll be another reason then. So we need to look at some.
So you couldn't coordinate because the drop-down menu. Which way did you try to coordinate? From the
Yeah,
clearance
through the
window
flight
or the
plan
flight
window.
plan window?
อะไรเคร้านวิดีโอเคร้านเมนู
Clearance window.
So it opened up, or it didn't open.
เปิดได้ไหมเปิดได้แต่ใส่ไม่ได้บล็อกมาเปิดได้ไอตัวเคร้านเมนู
Does this happen a lot, or is it?
จริง
พี่ตั้มเคยเจอป่ะ
some flight
อธิบายพี่ตั้มเค
We
ย
would
เจอ
need
ป่ะ
to check if you have a time.
10 โมงเคลียร์ร้าน ไม่ใช่
So when you have that
10.15 เราเข้าไปโค
situation,
ไม่ได้
the first thing to do is to go to the flight plan window and to check the state of the flight data record and make sure that, well, that it's still pre-active or that someone hasn't coordinated it already.
See that. But after this happened, I try to change EOVT in
Yeah.
flight plan window. It not accept.
It sounds like
So,
somebody coordinated
it
it,
does.
a different sector, and then you didn't have access to that flight anymore. Because once you coordinate it, if it was coordinated by someone else,
But the aircraft symbol is it show that the
มี
Still hollow?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it not coordinate.
Not coordinated yet.
ก็เครื่องบินมันยังโปร่ง
you would have to investigate at the time of the issue. Yeah.
Because it's not what should happen.
เคสเนี้ย
Doing everything right.
เซ็นเตอร์อยู่ดีโคขึ้นมาแล้วทางที่แหนวิ่งที่เชียงใหม่ก็โคไม่ได้เพราะไม่มีการประสานเขาเล่นเขาก็โคขึ้นมาไม่ได้
แต่ว่าอันนี้มันไม่ใช่ยังมีไม่มีใครทำอะไรทีประมาณนี้
Jimmy sorry
Oh, sorry, shift and click. Shift and click. Shift and click, yeah.
มันคิดมันจะเป็นอะไรขึ้นมา
ใช่เราได้วิธี
Flight data window.
ที่ภาษาเครื่องนะ
Yeah, shift and click.
อ้าวชิปแอนด์
So this one, shift, click on call sign, opens and closes the window. And then under flight state,
กดชิปแล้วคลิกที่ไฟ
So
นั้น
we
มัน
have
จะโชว์
we
ส
don't
เต
have
ท
to open the flight
nope,
flight
it's
plan window,
the
right?
same thing. So if we look where we've got flight plan is pre-active, position is notified. So it has that same information in here. You just don't have an action off it, whereas here I can access the function.
ก็จะตรงกัน
So that's a nicer way to access the data. It's through these flight data.
ปกติเราก็ดูอย่างนี้อยู่แล้ว
ใช้อยู่
ให้อยู่เราให้อยู่ห้องซิมมีใช่ไหมห้องซิมแต่ว่าเราไม่เคยทำอย่างนี้ลืมไปแล้ว
No, it's got nothing. It's not related at all because that's EFS state management. So the flight data record is still driven with this mechanism. So it doesn't. All it does is impact the EFS.
โอเค
อยู่ในโปรเจกต์30 นาทีอย่างนี้แน่นอนแล้วก็ทดลอง
So before I go any further, is this information being useful so far, or should we skip ahead to other stuff? Is this useful or next? Okay. I assume that's the next state, the next section. All right. So next state, coordinate. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that. We were just talking about the coordination, which is a manual action in the system. So pre-activation is automatic based on time. Coordination is a manual event for outbound flights. It can be manual or it can be automatic for inbound flights. If we received an estimate, we'll also do the coordination, or we could manually coordinate the inbound flight. Same thing, done through the clearance window. So what changes happen when we get the coordination event?